India is probably the simplest team after England to review in that sense, because you already pretty much know everything about them. I mean, what is their strength, what is their weakness, and where they stand in their particular departments. I mean, obviously, their batting has a lot of boxes ticked outside of more or less their openers, even though Rohit Sharma's form has been bad, but I'd still say this: he has been doing well in the important games. Like he did really well against Sri Lanka in that Asia Cup game. Then he was the one who helped India level the series against Australia as well. So even though his consistency is kind of questionable, I think he is still the kind of guy who would stand up in those situations, and I trust him to do that, especially in the country where he has done really well. Outside of him, I mean, again, it is pretty much simple because you do probably know what the 11 is going to be. There's Rohit Sharma and KL Rahul opening, Surya Kumar Yadav, Virat Kohli for when Virat Kohli for three, Surya Kumar Yadav for four. The number five option, there's multiple people for the number five option, but let's see who comes up. There's for Hardik Pandya for that. If you think so. There's also Akshar Patel. There's Dinesh Karthik, who will probably be the designated wicketkeeper. In the bowling, again, the obvious options. There's Arshdeep Singh, Bhuvneshwar Kumar, and probably Harshal Patel as the third pacer. And spin options, as we have already talked, Akshar Patel, and probably one of Yuzvendra Chahal or Ravichandran Ashwin, who obviously Ravichandran Ashwin brings a little bit of batting as well. So that's what I said. I mean, it's a simple team. You already know its strength. You already know its weaknesses, and the biggest thing is that this team knows the conditions really well, and it has performed like that for quite a while in these conditions. So I'll back them to do really well actually, because they have a lot of things going in their favor, especially in Australia.
I know there's been a lot of conversation about India's death bowling, especially that 19th over. How do you think the death bowling uh, should be spaced out? For me, based off what I saw, and given that Bumrah is not here, do you think that they should stick with Ardeep Singh to bowl that final over? And also, who do you think should bowl the 19th?
I think obviously there's a 50-50 chance that Mohammad Shami might play the game, although with India you never know, he might end up being the main bowler on the 23rd. But I don't think it would be Mohammad Shami who would be bowling at the death even if he's playing. I think they'll go with their trusted ones. Obviously, Arshdeep Singh bowls two of the four, and I think it would be Bhuvneshwar Kumar again, because even though he has not done really well at the death recently, I think a lot of trust can be put on him in these conditions where there's bigger boundaries and slower balls and Yorkers work really well, especially the wide Yorker. So I think from my point of view, it should be Bhoi and Ashdeep whom the team should put their trust in.
And what do you think about India's spin options? I see they have Ashwin, Chahal, and Akshar Patel in the side. Who do you think is gonna get their side in the?
I think Akshar Patel is pretty much, a go here because
Yeah,
he's obviously the all-rounder, so he brings a little bit of batting as well, and his bowling has been in a really good form. He's kind of the dart merchant, kind of basically the prototype that Ravindra Jadeja, or not exactly the same, but if you remember Alexa Hartley, the her and Jadeja were the original dart merchants before Imad Wasim or Nawaz or Akshar Patel came up. So yeah, that is pretty much it. I mean, Akshar Patel would be a lock, and then there's the second choice toss up between Ravichandran Ashwin and Iswain Chahal. I mean, they'll obviously get those two warm up games, and we'll see where it takes one of them. I guess it is a kind of Chahal, given that he's a leggy, and again that long boundary thing might come into play, but let's see what the warm up games make of it, and we'll see after that.
All right. And moving on to Pakistan, their squad actually received an update this morning. Captained by Babar Azam, their team consists of Shadab Khan, Asif Ali, Fakhr Zaman, who was in the standby players but has been promoted to the main side, Hyder Ali, Haris Rauf, Iftikhar Ahmed, Khushbil Shah, Muhammad Hasnain, Muhammad Nawaz, Muhammad Rizwan, Muhammad Naseem Shah, Shaheen Shah Afridi, Shan Masood, and standbys are Muhammad Haris, Shahnawaz Dahani, and Usman Qadir, who is the one who was dropped to make space for the now fit Fakhr Zaman. This Pakistan team, no surprises, absolutely none. The only surprise, to be honest, is Shaheen being back. Uh, there are people arguing that he should have been arrested for the World Cup just to not take any chances with him. But alas, Pakistan is Pakistan. They aren't the best at maintaining their fast bowlers. So here he is. If he's fit, I'm happy he's back. Obviously, he's one of the best in the world. If you look at the three departments, you see the issue that's been talked about. Rather the horse that has been beaten to death is the middle order. You have Babar Azam, Rizwan, and Fakhr opening the top three. Babar and Rizwan, what more can be said? They do that thing where they uh, score like 80, 90 runs in the first 10, 12 overs for no loss. Then from there, the road kind of splits. Either they could go all the way, or they get out and the middle order dies a slow death. But beyond them, on the lower order side, which is actually fairly good, you have Shadab Khan, you have Nawaz, you have Wasim, all bat well, all bowl well. Wasim less so, but he still bats well. He's capable. Shadab and Nawaz. What's interesting with them is that we saw in the Tri Series what Pakistan did is that they tried to hide their middle order by promoting their lower order, which was kind of funny to see. But it worked. Where they promoted Shadab, he succeeded. They promoted Nawaz to 4 in the final. He succeeded. But yeah, uh, yeah, real quickly before talking about the middle order, the fast bowlers, good as always, Shaheen, Haris Rauf, who built his career on Australian pitches, so good to see him there. Then Hasnain and Wasim, all of them are quick, pace is pace yard. With the spin bowling end, you have Nawaz and you have Shadab. That's really all we need. Iftikhar can bowl his part timers if necessary. But the middle order is where it gets dodgy because barring the last T20 we just played against New Zealand, which was an anomaly, all due respect to Hazard and Iftikhar, they played great, and I hope that confidence pushes them up through the World Cup. But they have been just endlessly failing, not carrying on the work the openers did. Then there's Asif Ali. He's he can only bat in the last over. If you send him anywhere before that, that's like sending out a free wicket. He can't bat there. He's a final over slog hard and inshallah merchant. LBK, I know I rambled for quite a bit, but Pakistan side, especially that middle order, and also what do you think about the approach that they've had, where they bat slowly at the top and then try to accelerate at the end?
First of all, I think I disagree with one of your points that I think Pakistan's team is pretty much covered in all phases, even in the middle order, in from a general point of view. But the big problem with Pakistan is that their strength is pretty conditional, to say the least. because actually I was seeing how they have gone through these 18 T20Is, from the beginning of the Asia Cup to the final of this tri series, and only once have Pakistan batted first on their own accord after winning the toss. So that is kind of a little problem there, because they have not pushed themselves to do the thing that they do not do much often, which is bat first. And the problem is, while batting first, most of their batters look lost. I mean, Mohammad Nawaz has been doing well, but it is always in the chase where you know how much you have to score.
Hmm.
While batting first, he looks lost most of the times. Shadab Khan did really well. I think the 2 innings that he played in these this tri series, but it is kind of an old thing, to be honest. The fact that he batted at 3 or 4 against New Zealand when the last time Pakistan came here, and Pakistan had to bat first in the first 2 games, and Shadab Khan looked a little lost even there as well. So that thing, I think, has been staying with Pakistan for a long time. I think I didn't tell you about Babar Azam. He In these 18 games, I think Pakistan have batted first 9 times, and Babar Azam has scored 255 runs in those 9 innings. His strike rate in the second innings is 130, but his strike rate in the first innings is only 112. And the problem is, if you remove that 1 innings that he played against England, 87 or 57,
Yeah.
then he is going lower than run a ball in the remaining 8 innings.
Wow.
So it is the issue. That's what I'm trying to say. The issue is very conditional, and that is the problem with Pakistan in general. That the bowlers do really well when they are bowling second, beg your pardon, bowling first, and the batters are doing really well when they're batting second. But switch it up, and then the issues start to, you know, mount, and that is the thing that I wish they had addressed a little more, because that is the point. See, the point of having England over for 70 T20Is is not winning a series, but preparing for the World Cup. And Pakistan, I don't think they batted first on their own accord in any of the games. Every time they batted first was because England won the toss and put them into bat. So obviously there were those 2 games where they defended really well, and credit to them for that. But if you look at the batting side was still pretty questionable even in those 2 games. So that is pretty much that. I mean, if they are going to bat first, they'll have to figure it out as soon as possible. Otherwise, it could be a really big issue for them.
Yeah, I believe in this past tri series we did bat on our own accord one time. I think that was the second game against New Zealand, and we got thrashed, right? So yeah, that's definitely a weakness we have, and you did good to point that out, especially Baba's strike rate in those situations, getting to below run a ball. I was listening to a podcast by Jared Kimber, uh, where he was asked about it, and he said that Pakistan's approach to T20 cricket is to is for the batsmen to be consistent in their batting, but not explosive in their batting. So you have say a T20 score of 150 to 160. They would aim for around there, and then they'd back their bowlers to win them the game. If the bowlers have an off day, they're not going to win. Uh, Jared said that he inherently disagreed with that because it puts more pressure on the bowling side and not as much on the batting side. Um, and I agree with that. But the deeper issue that I think caused this tactic to be employed in the first place is the lack of power hitters in Pakistan. At least the lack of power hitters that are in the upper echelons of the domestic circuit. We have a lot of accumulators, but even the power hitters in our team, Iftihar, Khushdil, they don't really get the job done as far as smashing goes. Like there's Iftihar, and then there's power hitters like Alex Hills, like Liam Livingston, who absolutely thrash it, like Tim David. We don't have any of those. So what we resorted to is to kind of put everything on the bowlers to defend it and just ask the batsmen to just let us crawl to par. Let us crawl to 150, 160. And I think that's an issue that'll take a long time for Pakistan to fix. But as for this team in the current World Cup, for what we have, it's not a bad team. I can't think of anybody I would replace with anyone else. Um, yeah, that's basically all there is to say. With what we have, I think it's the best team that they could have selected.
I think there's a little bit that I'll disagree with you on, and that is, as far as Asian teams go, I don't think we ever have had an actual power hitter in general terms. I think right now in the whole Asian diaspora, only one that actually qualifies as a pure power hitter is probably Kiran Navgire, from what I remember, and she has played like five T20Is for India. So
Hmm.
even she has not played a lot. While in general, what Asian players do is have a power game, but have something other to fall back on. Like you see someone like Dinesh Karthik or Hardik Pandya or Ravin Jadeja. All of them can hit sixes, but there's a decent background to that. Even if you know there's not a lot of scope to go big, then there's also the timing and placement. And this is kind of the thing with pretty much every batter in the Asian country, that they have some power game, but there's also something behind it. So I think that is Pakistan's main issue, that they have failed to trust that part, and this is what is causing these issues.
Yeah, we spent a bit too much time on that. But moving on to South Africa, captained by Temba Bavuma. Team consists of Quentin de Kock. Oh, I'm gonna slander these names. Heinrich Klassen, Riza Hendricks, Keshav Maharaj, Aidan Markram, David Miller, Lungi Ngidi, and Anrich Nokia, Wayne Parnell, Hagiso Rabada, Riley Rousseau, Tabre Shamsi, Tristan Stubbs, Marco Jansen, and on standby they have Jorn Fortune. I'm sorry,
Fortune, it's
I never
Fortune.
knew how to say his name. You said
Fortune,
Fortune?
yes.
Okay. And Philip Salaqueo and Lizard Williams. Um, LBK, what's the first thing that pops out to you about this team?
One thing that you have to remember about South Africa, even outside of just the general build of this team, is that they have been really dominant in the Australia, even the Australian continent in general. We have seen them do well in Test, ODI, or T20, no matter where in Australia, and we've seen that in pretty much every time they have toured here. And there's a lot of players who have been part of those conquests. So I think with someone like Markram, Miller, and Rousseau in this mix, I think their batting is pretty much covered. There is the issue of form in general, but I think Australia is the kind of place that resembles South Africa in quite a few ways. So they'll somewhat feel at home, to say the least, in these conditions. And as far as their bowling goes, it is pretty much right there. They have the left armers, there's the right armers, there's pacers, there's spinners. I think they have everything covered. There's also Anrik Norke who pulls wheels. So that is that for him.
Yep.
And I mean, that is pretty much their thing. They have explosive bats, they have explosive bowlers, and they have someone as experienced and as smart as Keshav Maharaj. So I think if you want to see a team that might not be as crazy as England, but be really balanced, then it is South Africa.
Yeah, I agree with those points. The closest conditions in the world to South African home conditions are those of the Australian ones. And I think they do, as you said, their fast bowling department is very quality, and their power hitting as well with the David Hiller who could and Riley Rousseau who could smash it. What do you think about? And I know this is also a topic that is quite beaten to death, but what do you think about Temba Bavuma and his recent form?
I won't mind if there's, they could find a way for him to be dropped and maybe he's a Hendrix. Just that, that is one
Bavuma is the
thing.
captain, though.
Yeah, I mean, he is the captain. That is not an issue. But I think we have seen Keshav Maharaj captain the
Yeah.
team, and he was not that bad, to be honest. He did what he could, but he was kind of low on the resources, and that is not too bad, honestly. And the thing is, this team is as autonomous as it gets. I mean, you have pretty much everything set. There's bowlers who bowl in the power play, there's bowlers to bowl in the death, there's bowlers to bowl in the middle overs, and batters know their role really well. So it is one of those teams that does not need a lot of captaining, to say the
Mhm.
least. So even if, I'd say, Temba Babuma was not the part of this team, I'd still back this team.
Of the teams that have qualified directly, do you think that South Africa is one of the more underrated teams, or the ones that people aren't really talking about as serious contenders?
Yeah, that is one thing. I mean, it is more or less to do with the fact that they do not have big names as they previously used to. Someone like Dilshan or EB de Villiers or even Faf du Plessis. But that is pretty much it. I mean, just because you do not have big names doesn't mean you can't win a tournament. It is not a popularity contest after all.
I think
So
I'd classify Quentin de Kock and David Hiller, at least Hiller formally, as big names.
yeah, I mean, they are big names in general terms. I mean, the ones who watch cricket on a regular basis, you'd say, like someone like us would actually consider them as big names, and even Anik Norke and Kagiso Rabada as the big names as well. But I'm more or less talking in terms of popularity.
I
You
see,
know,
yeah.
yeah, that is not exactly proportional to their talent or the explosiveness. So that is not really the point, though. Point is that they might not have those big faces or the faces that show up in the newspaper, but their talent or their performances are something that cannot be left unnoticed, and
Hmm.
especially in this part of the world, which is kind of like second home to them. So I mean, they'll do things that they usually do, and I think we won't be surprised if they are one of the teams to qualify from this round, especially given that they have to play at Perth, which is basically the perfect place for their bowlers to bowl. Tall
Yep,
guys who can extract bounce, they have pace, and there's Keshav Maharaj to pretty much, put all kinds of magic.
yep. So, of Group A, who do you think are the two teams? Oh, wait. Before I forget, let's talk about Sri Lanka as well, since we have time.
Sure.
The Sri Lankan team captained by Asun Hanika. Oh boy. Their
Actually, I can do
team.
it for you. Don't mind.
Yeah, you probably should.
Okay, so the team goes Pathum Nishanka, there's Dasun Shanaka, there's Dhanushka Gunathilka, there's Dhananjay De Silva, Chait Aslanka, there's the leggy all rounder Varindo Hasaranga, Kushal Mendes, Bhanuka Rajpaksha, Mahesh Tikshna, there's Jeffrey Vandersay, Chamika Karuratne, there's Dushman Chamira, there's Lahiru Kumara, Dilshan Madhushanka, and finally Pramod Madhushan. I think this team is basically South Africa, but again, a little underrated.
Yeah, the and just to add to that squad, the players on standby are Ashton Andara, Praveen Jayavikrama, Dinesh Chandamal, Benura Fernando, and Juan Fernando. And the ICCC says that Kumara and Jamita, their inclusion is both subject to their fitness, so they've been having some issues. Both are quality, so I hope to see them in. I think as far as their express pace goes, Shamira and Kumara are all they have in regard to just getting up there, the upper 140s, right?
Yep. Although I think from what I saw of Madhushanka, I mean, he's not exactly the express pace kind of bowler, but I think he was, you know, clicking in at early 140s even in the Asia Cup.
Yeah, so that's if if they're not fit to go, that would be a big blow to their bowling. But that aside, their spin bowling is good. Their batting is solid all the way down. Yeah, as you said, it's a very well-rounded team. They have all the bases covered, and uh, I kind of feel bad just to see them have to go through the qualifiers, given how quality this team is. Do you remember when the qualifiers were announced? Like who would directly qualify and who would uh, not, and who would have to go through that first round? Because Sri Lanka went from not that good to very good pretty fast.
Yep, and I think the biggest factor involved in that is the lack of expectations, I guess, because
The
obviously this
weight
is
of
a
all these expectations.
uh, the the fact is no one expected to do them really well in the Asia Cup, and this happens when there's a young team involved and there's not a lot expected from them. They that really helps them do well because obviously as we saw someone point out how the Sri Lankan team does not have quality bowlers, and what happened after that is pretty much history.
Yeah, I think it was
So
the Bangladesh head coach who said
yep,
that hey, they don't have any world class bowlers, and then I think the captain or somebody said that no, but we have 11 brothers or something to that effect.
yep, and it is the kind of thing that unifies a team. If someone questions the quality of a team, then becomes the matter of pride to
Yeah,
say in general, and it kind of motivates you to do well. And that was the case with Sri Lanka as well. But let's see what happens. I mean, as I've told, they did Australia, even though they only won one out of five games. But
mhm.
there's still a lot of potential and there's still a lot of quality here. So, I mean, you could easily see them qualify. That is not really something to doubt. But it would be interesting to see how they come out in the group stage as well.
Yeah, and they have their opener. For me, that's 12 a.m. on Sunday. I think that would be Sunday morning for India, and then Sunday evening for Australia. Um, we have about 10 minutes left. Would you like to discuss the West Indies team, or should we move on to tournament predictions?
Let's move on to predictions. We'll cover West Indies once the qualifiers are done.
All right. Um, so who do you think will get out of, or let's just start at qualifiers rather. I believe it's two teams It's four teams going up from the qualifiers, two in each group, right?
Yep. There's two groups. There's Netherlands, UAE, Namibia, and Sri Lanka in one group, and the other group has West Indies, Zimbabwe, Ireland, and Scotland. So I'd say, obviously you'd back Sri Lanka and West Indies to be the toppers of the group and move on. But the remaining stuff is really competitive, I'd say, because Netherlands, UAE, and Namibia are pretty closely matched teams. And even though Namibia has been doing really well, they qualified last time as well. I'd rather back Netherlands to go through, especially with how they have been coming up really well recent times. And as far as Group B goes, I think Zimbabwe has been having a really good time, at least you know with teams like Bangladesh, India.
Yo,
So
they just beat Australia in a T20.
yep, actually it was an ODI,
ODI, I'm sorry.
but I think their confidence is really sky high, and that might translate into something big here. At least you know they might get into the main round, and
Yeah.
you never know from there.
Yeah. For Group A, I would back obviously Sri Lanka, and I've grown rather fond of Namibia to be honest with you. So I think I'd go with
Yeah,
them.
everyone has.
And for Group B, um, I honestly would not be surprised if the West Indies get bounced by somebody like Ireland or uh, for some reason, I don't know if if I'm just wrong, but I feel that Zimbabwe is a safer bet than the West Indies to go through. That's
Yep,
just me. So
that
I
could be that could be
bet
the case.
Zimbabwe and Ireland going through in
Yep,
Group B.
because of Zimbabwe is the relatively the more sensible of the two, and we
Hmm.
have seen West Indies, the whole theory of hit sixes first, ask questions later
Yeah.
kind of deal. So, and that has blown up in their faces sometimes, even though that has also won them things. But you have to remember that those things came with a little bit of luck as well. I mean, here and there, but that's the matter of it. But Australia is one place where it could really blow up in their faces, especially with the big boundaries and teams knowing their approach really well. So it could easily again backfire. And I think Zimbabwe and Ireland have the goods to actually qualify for the second round.
All right, so let's move on to Group 1. Australia, England, New Zealand, and Afghanistan. And let's also, if Sri Lanka is first in their round, let's also throw them in there. So Afghanistan, Australia, England, and New Zealand, and Sri Lanka in Group 1. Who do you think? Which two do you think can move out?
I think I'll pretty much put England as the first team
Yep.
at the top. And let's not take any risks here. And I think Australia is the second. New Zealand is good. They have a lot of good things going for them. But I don't think it is possible to beat for them to beat someone like England, who is kind of far too superior to them from purely a talent point of view, and the fact that they are kind of already acclimatized to the Australian conditions with these 3 T20Is, and they obviously have an explosive batting lineup and a great bowling lineup to cover up for their things. And as far as Australia goes, I mean, Australia is Australia, and especially the fact that they like to bounce out New Zealand. So that sadly does not make a good case for New Zealand. And basically, England and Australia are my choices here.
Yeah, those are very safe picks, and those are probably the correct picks, to be honest with you. New Zealand's a good side, but I think, especially on Australian conditions, there is a gap between them and Australia and England. Of Afghanistan's just going to be fun to watch to see what they do, because I think they would be pretty fun to watch on Australian pitches, but Yeah, Australia, England, those are pretty much the locks. Move on to Group Two. Oh, could you predict the order? Uh, if it's Australia one or England two or
Yes, I said England is the top one.
yeah.
Australia is
Okay,
two.
right, right. All right. Moving on to Group Two: Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, South Africa.
This one actually, with this one, I'm taking actually taking a punt, and I think India would qualify as the first team here.
Mm-hmm.
And it for me, it comes down to the amount of experience they have here. And even though their issues are really sore right now, because we have seen the issues with the bowling and with the openers, but ultimately you have to remember the last two tournaments that they played were in UAE, which is probably the place where they perform the worst usually. And we are pretty much moving from the worst place for them to the probably the best place for them. Australia has been one of the best touring places for India in recent times.
Yeah.
Their last three tours have been really good successes. So I think I'd back them again to find the same success. And that will be my first pick. And my second pick would Pakistan, because is a really good team and they have pretty much every base covered. The one thing that might deceive them is batting in some pressure situations, which might cause an issue. But outside of that, I think Pakistan is a little safer of a
Mhm.
South Africa, because Pakistan obviously has a little bit of experience bowlers bowling here in the BBL, although the batters might need to acclimatize themselves. But they also have a little more sensible approach in their batting, gives them edge over South Africa, who kind of is much more explosive than they are sensible. So I think that is what makes
Mhm.
Pakistan the second team from my end.
For me, and for all the points you mentioned, I agree. I would also put India as the number one seed going into this semis, and I think it will be very close race for number two, and it'll probably come down to net run rate or something very close. But I put South Africa this escaping the first round with India. Uh, I think especially on these conditions, they'll be they'll be solid. Their team on paper has all the bases covered. You could argue the quality of some of them, but uh, I feel that South Africa has a chance to surprise a lot of people. Now moving into the finals, who do you think the finals are going to be?
Okay, so obviously, as I've said, England is the first seed for me from Group One. So obviously, England plays one of Pakistan or South Africa, while there's India versus Australia in the second. So I think the final could be England versus Australia or England versus India.
Right, and yeah, I agree with you. I would not be surprised to see an England Australia final.
And also, I think we can also pretty comfortably put that in case there's any other option to choose from, then it would be Pakistan, because there's a good chance that the semi-final might be England versus Pakistan itself.
For some reason, I don't know if I'm just crazy. For some reason, I think South Africa has a chance to go all the way. If they could make the finals against England or Australia, I feel that'd be a
Yep, I
good
mean
match.
the general things that you know from for the naked eye, it looks like South Africa has a really good chance, and with the kind of conditions and with the kind of team they have, it is pretty much natural to feel that they might go all the way and win the whole thing, because that is how they have done in Australia.
All right, and real quickly, due to short of time, who do you think will win it all?
I am backing England.
England?
They are.
Okay.
Yep. What about you?
Um, Australia or South Africa, just for the sake of being different, I'll say South Africa. Obviously, I'm supporting Pakistan to win, but I'll say South Africa here. All right, so thanks for being here, LBK. It was a lot of fun talking to you. I'm really excited for the World Cup in a week or so.
Sure. It has been nice seeing you, and let's see what we make of it.
You as well. For all the listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Hello and welcome back to King Parrot Podcast. My name is Ghostly, and I'm joined by LBK. How are you doing today, man?
I'm good. Thank you for introducing me.
So today, with the World Cup being a few weeks out, and the qualifiers being, I believe, one day out, we thought that it would be nice to go over the main round teams and their squads and how they stack up before the main show starts. So we'll begin with the Group A, that the group consists of, at the moment, Afghanistan, Australia, England, and New Zealand. So we'll be starting with the hosts, Australia. Captained by Aaron Finch, their team consists of Ashton Agar, Pat Cummins, Tim David, Josh Hazelwood, Josh Inglis, Mitchell Marsh, Glenn Maxwell, Kane Richardson, Stephen Smith, Mitchell Stark, Mark Stoinis, Matthew Wade, David Warner, and Adam Zampa. What do you make of this team, LVK? Anything that surprises you? Anything that stands out?
One thing, if we have to say about Australia, throughout all these years of you, me, or anyone watching the World Cup, is that there's never a surprise. Whatever they do is right in your face, and it happens. And usually, you can't do much about it for the most of the parts, out of some exceptions, obviously. But in general, their team has always been strong, even though there's some of their options always look, maybe out of form, or maybe not really suited to certain formats. But somehow they still managed to pull through. Like, there was a time when we used to doubt whether Matthew Wade or Marcus Stoinis would be useful outside of their hundreds in the ODI format. But we saw last year what happened, and they are again part of this team. There's similar options again. We have seen Tim David do well sometimes. There's been some ups and downs in his short career. There's Josh Inglis, who has not had a long career as of now, but obviously we'll see what comes up with him. And as far as their bowling and remaining batting goes, I think we know everything that has been said and everything that they have done. So there's nothing to see or say about that. And I think it is pretty much, one of the strongest side, given that the tournament is literally in their backyard.
I also want to talk a bit about the inclusion of Tim David, who they took from Singapore. He had a great PSL. He got picked up in the IPL. I believe he did pretty well over there too. Do you think it's too short of a runway to include him in the World Cup side for Australia, or do you think he's done enough to prove that he deserves to be there?
I think we are forgetting something, and that is that fact that he has played for quite a while in BBL, the
Yep.
Big Bash League. He played 4 seasons for Perth Scorchers, and now he has played 2 seasons for Hobart Hurricanes. So that is actually a lot of experience. He's already played 133 T20 matches. So I think that is enough. I don't think it calls for any change. He has already played for what, 10 different domestic sides.
Yeah.
So that is a ton of experience. I don't think there's anything or any doubt about him. And his, I mean, his dad has already played an ICC tournament, the 1997 ICC trophy for Singapore. So I think he already has some experience, in the genetics itself. So I think he's
I
going to
agree. I agree.
he's going to do well here, because you know there's nothing to suggest that he won't.
Moving on to Afghanistan, Captain once again by Muhammad Abi. Their team consists of Najibullah Sadran, Rahmanullah Gurbaz, Azmatullah Omarzai, Darwish Rasuli, Farid Ahmed Malik, Fazal Haq Faruqi, Hazratullah Zazai, Ibrahim Zadran, Mujibur Rahman, Naveenul Haq, Qais Ahmed, Rashid Khan, Salim Safi, Osman Ghani, and on their standbys they have Afsar Zazai, Harafuddin Ashraf, Rahmat Shah, and Gulbuddin Naib. On paper, what do you think about this side, LBK? Is there anything that surprises you? Do you think that they've plugged up their known weakness of fast bowling, or do you think it's more of the same?
With Afghanistan, it is always pretty much the same thing that we have been seeing. This Asia Cup pretty much showed us that their fast bowling resources are now kind of getting filled up slowly, and we saw how Fazal Farooqi did really well. There was, I think, Azmatullah Umar, beg your pardon, it was Farid Ahmed Malik, who was also the part of. They both
Yeah,
did
it
really
was.
well, and you know, looking at them bowling to teams like India or Sri Lanka, I think with their you know, the already available resources in their spin bowling and some of their available options in batting like Gurbaz and Zadran, even Zazai, I'd say they are pretty well equipped to beat the teams given that batting clicks because their bowling is pretty good to say the
Do
least.
you, do you think that batting wise, the Australian pitch would suit their aggressive style of play, or do you think they'll serve as a hindrance to them?
I think it is fine. Obviously, there will be movement early on, which is obviously, I mean, that is an issue for everyone more or less because we've seen teams struggle in the initial overs in Australia, and it has been that way for a long time, regardless of the format. So, obviously, that is not an issue. But I think one thing about Australia is that it's true bounce and pace that kind of uh, enables the shot making. And I think these guys can easily clear those boundaries. And at the end, I think this team has what it takes to score well in Australia. So I don't think it would be an issue.
Yeah, and they also have the likes of Mujibur Rahman and Rashid Khan and Qais Ahmed too. In fact, a lot of their bowling has spent a lot of time in the Big Bash, so that experience in Australian T20 conditions would also serve to help them out. And one more thing on Afghanistan. Do you think that with of course, as you said, Australian pitch offered that true bounce. Do you think we'll see anything special from Haruki, who for me was their standout fast bowler? I think he's a class above the likes of Harim Janatan Farid.
I think it is pretty much, looks like it is his destiny after all. I mean, as I've said, there's the early help for the bowlers and there's bounce in the pitches, and I think these are the things he is more than well equipped to exploit. And if he does do that at the game, then I think those early over success is his for the taking.
All right, now let's move on to England. Captained by Joss Butler, their team consists of Moin Ali, Harry Brook, Sam Curran, Chris Jordan, Liam Livingston, David Milan, Adil Rashid, Phil Salt, Ben Stokes, Reese Topley, David Haley, Chris Wokes, Mark Wood, and Alex Hales. Their standby players are Liam Dawson, Richard Gleason, and Jamal Mills. Any surprises here for you, LVK, with the resources that England have available? Obviously, they have some injuries. I think this is pretty much what everyone expected. Would you agree?
Yep, it is kind of the English way to go I mean, the team is always pretty much set in stone. The guys who will be playing
Ollie
unless they're
Stone is not in the side.
okay. From what we saw in the series against Pakistan, I think you could see the 11 forming more or less outside of Ben Stokes. Obviously, he's kind of been. I mean, his whole T20 career, T20I career, to be precise, has been kind of underwhelming to say the least. But even outside of him, if you see all the three departments, in batting, Malan always makes up for any kind of collapses. So does Moeen Ali, and they can also go big if they want to, and they already have enough resources to go big in Joss Butler. There's Alex Hales, and in case Liam Livingston is fit, then there's him as well. And there's always the extra padding with the guys like Sam Curran, Chris Vokes, David Willey, and even Mark Wood can whack it here and
Yeah.
there. And the same goes for their bowling as well, because they have their first line of bowling, with Mark Wood, Reece Topley, Chris Jordan, Adil Rashid, and then there's their all-rounders. There's Sam Curran, there's David Willey, obviously Ben Stokes and Moeen Ali can also chip in with overs. So it seems like they have everything covered and some more.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see how Mark Wood goes. 156 clicks on those Australian pitches should be very fun to watch. And yeah, as you said, in spin they're covered with Adil Rashid on the wrist spin end, pointedly on the finger spin end. With pace, Mark Wood, Wokes, Wiley, Stokes, and obviously their batting is as good as it always is. And England always bats as you said, they're the ultimate bat deep team. They bat all the way down. So yeah, no surprises here per se, but England they're going to be a contender as always. Moving on to New Zealand. In Williamson, their team consists of Tim Southey, Ish Sodhi, Mitchell Santner, Glenn Phillips, Jimmy Neesham, Daryl Mitchell, Adam Milne, Martin Guptill, Lockie Ferguson, Devin Conway, Mark Chapman, Michael Bracewell, Trent Bolt, and Finn Allen. I did not know that Lockie Ferguson's first name is Lachlan. I saw his
Yep.
name while reading the team, the squad list, and was confused who that was for a second.
Yep. Actually, Lockie Ferguson is still unfit, from what I hear. I think
I've heard
there's
that,
still
yeah.
some questions, some doubt on his availability, and same is, I think, the case with Adam Milne as well.
I
But
think that
if he is
that just
available,
goes to
then
show
he's
that just goes to show how good Lockie Ferguson is. That even when he's in doubt, he still has that spot locked in.
yep. And he's basically the Mark Wood of New Zealand. I
Yeah.
mean, his pace does the talking for him, and he can also whack it a little just like Mark Wood, but that is not the point here. And I think that is pretty much what sums up Lockie Ferguson. I mean, he's fast, he's fierce, and he's most of the times on the money. And there's a reason why his team won the IPL 2022 rather easily, because he was one of those vital cogs in the machine that you know gets the job done every time. And same would be the case with him and his national team, I guess.
Yeah, this New Zealand team is essentially the same team which just played the Tri Series with Bangladesh and Pakistan, and they were competitive the whole way through. Obviously, New Zealand conditions are different than Australian ones, but going off of that, the team looks good. They played Pakistan 3 times. They thrashed them once, and the other two were pretty close games. The final was very close. Kane Williamson, people were talking about his strike rate. It is a matter to discuss, but we saw in that final yesterday that when he needs to smash it, he can smash it. Uh, Kane is one of the best batsmen in the world. While T20 isn't his premier format, it's not one to write him off in. And obviously, they're fast bowling. Southey, Bolt, Nisham, they're very good fast bowling side. Think their spin. Ish Modi, I'm not sure how he is on Australian tracks, but I think that Santner has a lot has that experience with him to help New Zealand through the tournament.
I mean, Aish Sodi obviously has not been having a really great time pretty much since the knockouts of the previous World Cup. Ever since he got smashed by David Warner, his confidence has been kind of up and down. Even we saw it in this try series where he would go for a lot of runs because he was being a little predictable, obviously, and sometimes it was just him putting putting up a lot of drag downs in general. But the point is, he's a leggy, and with the long boundary, a leggy always comes in play. And I think New Zealand will back him. I mean,
Yeah.
it is fine that someone like Michael Breezewell is in the team, but I feel like Ish Sodi is still one of the trusted ones, especially with his partnership with Mitchell Santner that did really well for them in 2016, although it was in India. But again, that's not the point. And I think they'll again trust them to do well. And seems like this try series, even though that was really bad for him, I think he'll still remain one of the most important parts of the squad, I guess.
Yep. And that is for now the end of Group A. I believe two more will be added through the qualifiers. And what's interesting is that Sri Lanka will have to play through those qualifiers too. And they are in incredible form as a T20 side right now. They're coming off of an Asia Cup win. Um, I maybe we could discuss the Sri Lankan side afterwards because of just they are no disrespect to the teams in the qualifiers, but would you agree in saying that Sri Lanka is the class above them all?
I mean, speaking on current form, I think they are at least better than two to three sides that have already qualified. I mean, Bangladesh, no disrespect to them, but they are several leagues below Sri Lanka as of now. India has a lot of form issues. Pakistan is more or less same as Sri Lanka, but they also have some of their, over dependence things. But I think Sri Lanka is one team that is ticking a lot of boxes and in a pretty good form, to say the least, because it seems like everything is working for them right now. The only thing that might be a little bothersome is the lack of practice because they have not played any games since the Asia Cup final, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly, which could bother them. Obviously, I think I said this in the Asia Cup review that if there's one place that felicitates Sri Lanka's style of play, that is UAE, and they did really well there. But now it's time to move to Australia, where the record, while is not that good, they did compete really well with Australia early on when they toured here. So you can expect them to do it again because they
Yeah.
have beaten Australia 2-0 2018, if I remember correctly. And we might see the repeat of that again.
Yeah, so if we have time on the back end of the podcast, we could discuss their side. But for now, moving on to Group B, going in alphabetical order, starting with Bangladesh, captained as always by Shakib Al Hassan when he decides to play. The team consists of Gurul Hassan, Afif Hussain, Ibadat Hussain, Hassan Mahmoud, Itindas, Mehdi Hassan Hiraz, Mustafizur Rahman, Ajmal Hussain Shanto, Shariful Islam, Somias Harkar, Musaddiq Hussain, Nasum Ahmed, Taskin Ahmed, Yasir Ali Chaudhry, and on standbys they have Mehdi Hassan, Irshad Hussain, Sabir Rahman, and Muhammad Saifuddin. I feel that Bangladesh has been underperforming in the last couple years. Obviously, they're a cricket loving country. They have a huge population, and cricket's one is their biggest sport. and to see them performing as they have been is kind of sad. Um, this side, it's on paper, it's not bad. It's definitely not a bad side. I think they would. I wouldn't say if they were in the qualifiers, they'd just easily walk out of it. But I'd still confidently say that they qualify. But yeah, LBK, what do you think about this Bangladesh team and the performance issues they've been having recently?
Uh, Actually, this time I'll be a little different because during the Asia Cup preview, we pretty much wrote them out, off the bat, and that is what happened. But I think this won't be the case this time because firstly, we have seen Litton Das do well in the tri series. So was the case with Shakib Al Hassan. But with the tournament being in Australia, I think someone like Mustafizur Rahman could be the trump card here because we've seen in the England versus Australia games how good Sam Curran was with his bowling variations, and from what I know, Mustafizur Rahman has a lot of variations, and that could work really well with the long boundaries. So if the remaining bowlers can bowl around him, he can be the leader of this attack. And as far as batting goes, even though there's limited options, obviously from the trustable ones, I think it is Yasser Ali who is really good at hitting, but everyone else is kind of you know kind of on the lower side with that. But I'll still think that with the place this World Cup is in, I think it could be really interesting for them because even though it was not the format in 2015, was Bangladesh did really well here in the 50 over World Cup. So they are kind of acclimatized with the conditions before, and they have done some good things here. So who am I to say they might not do it again?
Yeah, I think that Bangladesh is one of those teams which, I mean, of course, it's cricket. Anyone can be anyone on any given day. And with Bangladesh, I think that's especially true for them. Even when they're not in form, they could still give a big fight. The last tri series they just played, that was rather rough for them. I think they lost every game and only one was close. But yeah, they're professionals. I'm sure they'll figure it out before the World Cup. Moving on to India, captained by Rohit Sharma. Their team consists of KL Rahul, Virat Kohli, Surya Kumari Yadav, Deepak Huda, Rishabh Pant, Dinesh Karthik, Hardik Pandya, Ravichandran Ashwin, Yuzi Chahal, Akshar Patel, Bhuvi Kumar, Harshal Patel, Arjdeep Singh, Mohammad Shami. On standby, they have Mohammad Siraj, Reyes Ayyar, and Ravi Bishnoi and Shardul Thakur. I'm sorry for the mispronunciations of all of those names. LBK, this is your team.